Currently 9:05 a.m. and I'm calling to order the meeting for the House Legislative Modernization Committee for our 9 a.m. meeting on Monday, February 10th, a very solemn day in Kansas history, as we saw from last night. Go Chiefs. And nobody else. Diane is an Eagles fan, or at least her family is, so we have fun with that. I hope everybody had a great weekend besides last night. And this morning we have a little bit of business that we want to jump right into and move forward. This morning we're going to do two hearings on two bills that have come before, three bills that have come before the committee. House Bill 2060 and House Bill 2238. There we are, two bills. I got a double print. And we may have the opportunity to do a little bit of work on those two bills. Now, House Bill 2060 is one that is talking about the Information Technology Executive Council providing certain information and reports, and I would like to call our reviser to explain that bill, if she will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Morning.
House Bill 2060 requires the Information Technology Executive Council to provide certain information technology reports to the Joint Committee on Information Technology. The bill amends two statutes, but it amends them in identical ways, so I'll just explain it once. It amends KSA 757203, that's the statute that provides the duties of the Information Technology Executive Council, and then it also amends KSA 757245, the statute that provides that all cybersecurity services shall be provided by the CTO and the CISO of each branch. The changes that you made in Senate Bill 291 require the Information Technology Executive Council to form a plan to integrate all executive branch information technology services into the Office of Information Technology Services, and to consult with each of the agency heads when they're making that plan. Right now, under current law, the council is required to report that plan to this committee and the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. And this bill would add the Joint Committee on Information Technology to the list of committees who receive that report. And I can take any questions.
Committee, at this time, do you have any questions for our reviser, Ms. Natalie? Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you give us a list, just a written list that you would email out to each of us of who's all on that committee?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Riley, which committee are you talking about?
The first one, the IT Executive Committee.
ITech? Yes, I bet James, I don't want to offer him up.
Those people know. If you could just send us a copy or whatever. Of,
yeah, I'll have James get that information distributed to the committee. I'm sure he'd be happy to do it.
Any other questions for the reviser? Seeing none, thank you so very much, Natalie. We appreciate that. And going into the file folder for today's hearing on House Bill 2060, I see the proponent testimony. I'd like to at this time open this up for proponent testimony. And I have the Honorable Kyle D. Hoffman, the Assistant Majority Leader of the Kansas House. Mr. Hoffman. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I appreciate you looking at this bill. I'm here to provide testimony for 2060. During the last legislative session, as you know, we passed House Bill 2077 that mandates regular reports on the state's IT technology system, which are critical for ensuring transparency and accountability in the management of IT resources. 2060 just would be a logical step to alter the original mandate, but simply does not alter the original mandate, but simply adds the Joint Information Technology Committee to the list of recipients of these reports. That would ensure that the committee, which is tasked with overseeing the state's IT infrastructure, has the necessary information to fulfill its responsibility. So I respectfully urge you to support House Bill 2060 to enhance legislative oversight for our state's IT initiatives. Now, I also know that you're working on the companion bill to 2077, and so with the chair's indulgence, it would probably be pretty easy to just merge this into that companion bill if that was what needed to happen. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, do you have any questions now for Chair Hoffman? Seeing none, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
You've wowed us.
Well, I'm sure about that, but
Fantastic. I don't see any other oral proponent testimony. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to provide proponent testimony from the oral side? Seeing none, you have the written testimony from Chair Hoffman in your file folder. I see no, no written or oral testimony for neutral. Do we have anyone today that is decidedly neutral on House Bill 2060 that would like to testify? Seeing none, I see no oral or written testimony in the opponency in the file folder. And I am checking to see if there's anyone in the gallery that might be opponent of House Bill 2060. I know that Hoffman is a tough act to follow. Okay, seeing none. Then I will go ahead and close the hearing on House Bill 2060, and I would like to open the hearing on House Bill 2238. And Revisor Natalie, would you like to explain to us this bill, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2238 directs legislative administrative services to prepare all committee amendments. Section 1 amends KSA 46-1210. That's the statute that creates the Legislative Research Department. Current law there in subsection C requires that the department, among their other duties, prepares minutes of each committee meeting to show attendance, disposition of agenda items, tentative and final committee decisions, and staff instructions, and such other matters as may be helpful to the work of the committee. This bill would strike that from the department's list of duties, and then the bill amends KSA 46-1212A, which is the statute that creates the Division of Legislative Administrative Services, to add that duty to the list of their services. And I can take any questions.
Committee, at this time, do we have any questions for the revisor? Representative Oropesa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your explanation. My question is what is the difference between a KLRD staff compared to a LAS staff? Are they temporary as well, or are they full-time? Like, what's the difference in makeup of their employment?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Oropesa, you actually have the privilege of hearing from the Director of Legislative or KLRD after me, so I'll kind of let her talk about that. They're professional, full-time staff. They're not part-time like the committee assistants are.
Do you have any other questions for the revisor? And seeing none, thank you so much, Ms. Natalie. Okay, committee, if you look in your file folder, you'll see a couple of things in there. Number one is going to be, let's see, I think we have in there the, make sure I'm correct on that. Yes, you have the fiscal note from Adam Proffitt of the budget, Director of the Budget, and you have written testimony from Ms. Shirley Morrow, is that correct? Who is the Director of KLRD. So you have that in there for written testimony. At this time, I'd like to, and that's written proponent testimony. This time, I'd like to open up the floor for our oral proponent testimony. Ms. Morrow, and please state your name for the committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. My name is Shirley Morrow. I'm the director of Kansas Legislative Research Department. Natalie did a wonderful job describing this bill. It simply moves the editing and processing of interim committee minutes, which are currently in Kansas Legislative Research Department, to Legislative Administrative Services. Legislative Administrative Services is responsible for hiring committee assistants and training committee assistants who prepare minutes during session. What happened historically is the KLRD statute that Natalie referred to that created the department happened in 1971, so we're looking at over 50 years ago. Legislative Administrative Services was created in 1975. So it's my understanding that because KLRD had been created, they put the interim responsibilities in our department and then session responsibilities in LAS. We have two different KLA systems for processing minutes between session and the interim, and for consistency, the fact that we use the same committee assistants, it would be much simpler and modernize the processes if the minutes were done both during session and during the interim within Legislative Administrative Services.
Thank you for that testimony. It's good to see you here this morning.
Good to see you,
We have a few new members here on the committee, so I know that they probably are wondering who makes all of the magic happen down at KLRD. And ladies and gentlemen, I add a face to the name. All righty. Yes, ma'am, please.
If I could, I will address the question that was asked. Kansas Legislative Research Department has 3 different divisions within our department. We are full-time. We're down in the basement in 68 West. I absolutely would ask you all to come down and visit us. We actually prepare a lot of the research documents, the fiscal documents. Our 3 divisions are fiscal analyst, research analyst, and then our IT department. One of the major things our IT department is responsible for is all the redistricting and all the data that's collected for redistricting. We are the ones responsible for the maps and all of that. And if anybody needs a map, we have everything you would need for redistricting. The fiscal analysts are responsible to help prepare the appropriations bill and staff all of the budget committees. And then the research department staffs the policy committees. And again, we're full-time. There are dozens of reports, research, legislative requests that we provide for the legislature. Legislative Administrative Services, and I know Tom Day's here, so I won't go into too much of what they do, but they are responsible for taking care of the legislators, the rooms, the stationery, your pay, things like that.
Fantastic. Will you be able to stand for a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we want to go back to Representative Oropeza. She had one previously. Has that been answered? You're good to go? And I think we have Rep. Riley first, and then we'll move to Rep. Howerton. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Shirley, back in 1971, just looking at the history, do you have any feedback of, did research hire committee people, committee assistants back then, or how was it for that 4-year period of time that we had committee assistants that were doing the job, but you were responsible for that?
To be honest, sir, due to the fact that that was 50 years ago, I'm not real sure how that came about. And I don't know anybody who's around now that would be able to answer that. So I'm not quite sure what the distribution of those requirements were.
So just to follow up to that, I guess, I mean, we've been doing it this way since 75, basically, correct?
71.
71, but since 75, LAS has actually been hiring and paying for the committee assistants to do their job as they do right now. So your department has not been paying them, is that correct?
Correct.
So this has been going on for a while. We are just putting it in statute.
We are changing the statute so that the consistency of the minutes, both during session and during the interim, are within the same department.
And Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious, you mentioned there was 2 systems of keeping minutes. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, it's the KLIS system, and Kansas Legislative Research Department has its own system within KLIS. Legislative Administrative Services has their own system within KLIS. Due to the fact we have 2 separate systems, the committee assistants work within the KLIS system within LAS. KLRD works within the KLIS system within KLRD. So there will need to be a little bit of a modification to the KLIS system for the interim committee minutes when we make this transition.
So is that something that each department pays for each year, or is that something we've already paid for, or?
There's
Curious. Like your department, does it pay for the system software for that? And then does LAS pay for their own system?
I don't believe it's really a paid-for system. It's
Okay.
because KLIS also does the legislative interface for, I mean, that's the legislative system.
Okay,
There's just different parts and pieces to it.
okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Ms. Morrow? Yes, Representative Weichel.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if this is for you or maybe for somebody in the audience. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to the training that's done around minutes, around consistency, because I think a lot of people have noted it's inconsistent from committee to committee in terms of the depth of the minutes and how often they're available and such. So, I mean, are you able to provide any insights on kind of how that training works?
I would actually defer that to Tom Day, who has legislative administrative services, and they're the ones that do the training.
Mr. Day, I see you present. Would you like to approach and perhaps provide us a little bit of insight as to the training aspect of how the minutes come to be for Representative Weichel and the committee, please?
If we're talking about the regular session, we're not talking about joint committees during the interim or anything like that. All committee assistants go through the exact same training, doesn't matter which chamber they are in, whether they're House or Senate. But then once it gets to House or Senate, then you have different expectations from committee chairs. You have different nuances that a committee chair may want in minutes or not in minutes. We try to maintain a consistency throughout all committees, but that changes once it gets into the committee. This chair may want something different than the chair in appropriations. So that's why we're moving this from KLRD to LAS, so that the minutes from whether it's during the regular session or whether it's during the interim session all look the same. Because if you'll notice, some of the interim committee minutes look different than what the committee minutes look like during the regular session. And this has just been over time, over the 54 years now of KLRD and then 51 years of LAS. It's just kind of been a morphed system as it goes along as to what gets involved and what gets put into the interim committee minutes. Many directors previous to Ms. Morrow wanted more inclusive information inside the minutes, where during the regular session, it's not quite that intensive during the regular session for minutes. I hope that answered somewhat the question. But all training is done to all committee assistants at the same time, so they all learn the same thing.
Yes, Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to follow up, I think you need to do training with chairs. I am a brand new chair, and I get lots of questions from my committee assistant, and she wants me to be the expert, and I have no idea how that system works or what, just anything. So we're just kind of winging it. So if you could extend that information to the chairs, that would be amazing. Or a book. I'd even read a book.
If you care to, Mr. Day. Representative Esau. I'm not supposed to let all the secret sauce out.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for tolerating my remote attendance earlier. A question that may have been answered as I was between the garage and here. Am I understanding correctly? Well, two things. One is under the whole minutes thing, which maybe that you could answer a little bit, but you don't have to. There's kind of a standard of what should be in minutes under, say, Robert's rules, but of course the House uses Mason's rules, et cetera. And some chairs, as you say, want more detail and others don't. So does the training kind of follow one of those Robert's rules, Mason's rules, or is it just a general, this is the way we like to do it here? And then I have a minor follow-up.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Because both chambers use different aspects, whether it's Robert's rules or Mason's rules. That doesn't play into how the committee minutes are done. We try to put the same information because Mason's rules and Robert's rules of order basically have the same basics, kind of. There are nuances in both of the rules, but we try to follow just the basics of which would cover both rules along the way. And there are, you know, there are many times, and the revisor's office is very involved in this as we get through in minutes, especially in the committee setting in the regular session, whether the motion has been approved, whether the motion was made and who made the motions. Those types of little issues within the minutes have to be there. And that's not necessarily for the current, it is for the current session, but it's also for research down the road 40 years from now. Was a motion actually made to approve the passage of Senate Bill 2338 or House Bill 2338? Whatever the case is, we try to maintain that consistency along all committees. Again, it gets into what does the committee chair want, but still maintaining that consistency. And as you all know, in the House side, a revisor, an RS number is required for introduction. That is not necessarily required in the Senate. So, you know, if we had a committee secretary, a committee assistant move from the House to the Senate, they're going to see a little bit of difference once they get over to the Senate side. But we still try to maintain that consistency as we review minutes at the end of every session.
Thank you, and that pretty much answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Day. Do we have any other? Oh, we do. Let's see, Representative Carl Turner.
Thank you. He's making a slow walk off, but a question, your comment. No. Your comment.
We're going to tender your comments as proponent testimony, and now you may proceed.
But your comment about the prior director wanting more detail on the notes, you know, I had to think about this because I never really had thought about the fact that you're right. Legislative research is doing the interim notes versus LAS. So I even looked, and there is a committee assistant for my interim committees, but the nature of the interim committee is a bit different because, you know, in regular session, we're working bills in committee and passing bills out, having hearings on bills. Interim committees are more, you know, oversight, collecting information, and the purpose of the minutes, because I know we're always very careful about capturing the wording to be accurate in terms of what the committee agreed to have as far as recommendations out of that session. So I wondered if that's the prior director's concern, is because the minutes are actually, well, there's also a report out of committees, I believe. So how do you, a couple of questions. Minutes versus the report of the committee, and the prior director's concern about that. Is that related? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Vice Chair, if it's okay.
Please proceed.
There is, what we're moving are the minutes to Legislative Administrative Services. All of the rest of the stuff that is done during the interim is still in that same statute. I mean, it's still in the statute as far as the responsibilities for KLRD. They will continue to do the interim reports. They'll get the interim committees running. They'll work with us on a committee assistant. And so nothing there changes. It's just the minutes that'll stay in with some changes in the KLIS system that will stay with LAS, and we don't have to keep shipping them back and forth to KLRD for their approval and all of that, which is what happens now. KLRD, they get the committee assistant to work with them on the final minutes, but that will no longer take place. That'll just move back into LAS, and we'll continue to do minutes as we would during a regular session, but with a little more information. Like you said, you're not working bills you're making recommendations for bills maybe, but you're mainly gathering information and getting more information to move into the regular session.
Thank you, sir.
And Representative Oropesa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question goes back to the comparison between KLRD, their full-time compared to the LAS is part-time or just during the session. I'm assuming you have a plan for that? Because you're going to be, right, you're going to be all through session in the interim committees providing these minutes?
They will still be temporary session staff for committee assistants during the interim. And during the interim, we don't have the luxury of committee assistants being here all the time. So we have to work around schedules of committee assistants. So let's say the Joint Committee on Information Technology may not have the same, in that case they do, but it may not have the same committee assistant in August that they would have in a November meeting, only because that committee assistant may be traveling. Most of them are retired, and with a few exceptions. Most of them are retired, so we're working around their schedules as well. So we may have to pull in an alternate that would normally do that particular joint committee and have somebody else fill in. But everybody is trained the same on doing the minutes, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, committee. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Day as he creeps off very slowly? Thank you, Mr. Day, and thank you, Ms. Morrow, for your help today. Committee, usually, now we are a little short on time because we do have something pretty important to go over today, and that is a very special procedure that we have to go into. But before we get to that, I would like to advise the committee that usually, according to our committee rules, we wait a day or two before we work a bill, but we're coming down to the end of session before turnaround. So there's an opportunity for us, since we're here today. I know that some people will be out of town on this coming Friday as well, that we can actually work some of these non-controversial bills that we are hearing today. We have the proponent testimony from Ms. Morrow and Mr. Day. We have no neutral and we have no opponent testimony. We have the fiscal note from Mr. Profit over at the Director of Budget and says that there will be no impact to the budget for this small change to take place. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion. Okay. Representative Smith, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I make the motion, just wanted to ask a quick question.
Yes.
Is it the chair's wishes that we could potentially put this on the consent calendar?
That would be customary and it would be advisable. However, it does not allow me to haze some of my freshmen. I can't say that in the open mic.
That's why I'm asking your permission.
No, I would like to see this one go to the floor if that's the will of the body, but it is the will of the body, so.
Nope, just, I'll do the will of the chair, so I would make the recommendation to recommend favorably for passage.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we need to suspend the rules or make a motion to suspend the rules so we can consider the bill today. Is that what's in order?
That is in order. Do I have that motion?
Yes, I would make that motion.
Do I have a second? Second by Representative Riley. All those in favor of the motion to suspend the rule and work this bill that we've heard today, House Bill 2238, say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion carries. Did I have another motion?
Do you have a preference on which bill we address?
House Bill 2238 is today's.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend that we recommend, make the motion to recommend House Bill 2238 favorable for passage.
Fantastic. We have the motion. Do we have a second? Second by the Vice Chair. All those in favor say aye. Up. I'm so sorry. Before we take that vote, I do have a hand for discussion, please.
I did think I noted a small typo.
Okay.
Page 2, line 7. It just seems like the second and third words are transposed.
Natalie, can you give us a hand with any transposition?
Line 17, not line 7.
17. What word are you referring to, Representative?
It says prepare final A committee instead of prepare a final committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That does look like a drafting error. I don't know if the chair would be willing to entertain a conceptual amendment to fix that or not, but you can discuss.
Okay, thank you for that catch. I appreciate that, Representative Weichel. May I amend your motion? Not only do we pass this House Bill 2238 favorably for passage, but we also allow the revisor's office to do any pertinent cleanup, small technical cleanup as well.
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be better if perhaps someone could just make a motion to move that to actually amend the bill as a separate motion. And then you can go back to your motion to pass it out. If you just make a motion to, strike that A and put it before final, that'll be good.
Okay, according to Robert's Rules of Orders, what we are on right now is one motion. What you're proposing is a substitute motion, and that kills the original motion. That said, we have a substitute motion on the table. Do we have a second? Second by Representative Brantley. The motion on the table is to go to line 17 and strike final A committee and replace it with a final committee. That is the motion on the table. It's been moved, properly seconded, and it's open for discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion carries. Now we are back on the bill, and I will entertain a motion to pass it out favorably as amended.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would make the motion that we recommend House Bill 2238 favorable for passage as amended.
You've heard the motion. Do I have a second? And the second is with Representative Riley. Has been properly moved and seconded. There's any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And it appears that the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The motion prevails. House Bill 2238 has now been moved out of committee for passage. Thank you for that work. I appreciate it. At this time, we will turn to the reviser. Oh, you want me to do it? I'll do it. Come on, let's send it. Hope. Okay, and committee, thank you for your patience. This is first time doing things, and this is something that is important that we must read. I've been informed, so I believe that our vice chairman does have a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do. I move that the open meeting of the House Committee on Legislative Modernization be recessed for a closed or executive meeting pursuant to KSA 75-4319A to discuss subjects relating to security in the Kansas Corporation Commission, Kansas Historical Society, Board of Indigent Defense Services, and the Kansas State Department of Education with the appropriate personnel from the Legislative Division of Post Audit, the Office of Information Technology Services, the Kansas Corporation Commission, the Kansas Historical Society, the Board of Indigent Defense Services, and the Kansas State Department of Education pursuant to KSA 75-4319B12C, because the discussion of such subjects in an open meeting would jeopardize such security measures, that the committee resume the open meeting in room 218 north of the State House at 10:20 a.m., that the discussion during the closed or executive meeting shall be limited to those subjects stated in this motion, and to record this motion, if adopted, as part of the permanent record of the committee. And the designated essential personnel who should be present, sorry if I butcher your names here, Katrin Osterhaus, IT Audit Manager, Legislative Division of Post Audit, Alex Gard, Principal IT Auditor, Legislative Division of Post Audit, Jeff Maxon, Chief Information Technology Officer, Office of IT Security, John Godfrey, Chief Information Security Officer, Office of Information Technology Services, Lynn Retz, Executive Director, Kansas Corporation Commission, Patrick Zollner, Executive Director, Kansas Historical Society, Matthew Chappell, Director of Administration, Kansas Historical Society, Heather Cessna, Executive Director, Board of Indigent Defense Services, Brandon Barrett, General Counsel, Board of Indigent Defense Services.
Thank you for that, Mr. Vice Chairman. Committee, you've heard the motion. Do we have a second for that motion? Have a second from Representative Adam Smith. It has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Move ourselves into executive session. Okay, committee, we are now done with that executive session. I want to thank you all for your patience and as well as our staff for allowing us to hear some pertinent evidence and information on those reports from the legislative post-audit IT community. And a special thanks to both of you, both Alex and Katrin, for drilling down into that, preparing that so professionally and getting it to us. If the committee has any questions, you know, please forward them over to the committee assistant, and we will get those over to the team at LPA and get answers published for the good of the committee as well. Just to state again, on this Friday, 9:30, we'll try this again. There'll be a joint session with the Senate, and we'll have some of these individuals coming back to include our friend Ms. Reds from KCC, as well as the KSDEPs. Okay. I have a question from Representative Riley. You're on mic. We're back in regular session.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. A question for the reviser of maybe comments that the chair might make about any action that might have happened during executive session.
Okay. We didn't hear your question. One more time, please.
Asking the reviser if that the chair might be making any comments on any actions that might have happened during the executive session. I think we need a comment here.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Riley, I am not present during the executive session, so I don't know what happened. So I wouldn't be able to answer anything about that.
If you're asking if I want to make a comment about any actions taken during the executive session, no, I do not, but thank you. Do we have any other business before the committee today? Seeing none, we are adjourned.